So next speaker would be Dr. Sanjay Govil. He'll be presenting the landmark publications in biliary surgery. Dr. Sanjay Govil.
Thank you, chairpersons, ladies and gentlemen. I've slightly changed the format and I hope you'll forgive me. I didn't, with apologies to some of the people here, but I didn't find anything that I would consider a paper which would change practice, which is what I would consider as being a landmark publication. So how do you start this? What I've done instead is, boss. Right, I don't know if some of you have been fortunate in, can I get my slides? Oh, it's on. So I don't know if some of you have been fortunate enough to see this reduced Shakespeare company where they go through the entire works of William Shakespeare in about an hour and a half. I'm going to take 10 minutes to tell you what's happening in biliary surgery. It's a moot point, which is more interesting. And I am the sole member of the reduced biliary company. So I've divided the publications into these diagnoses, and I'm going to tell you with the help of some of the important literature as to the direction in which some of these are going. So as far as benign gallbladder disease is concerned, there are lots and lots of articles on single incision laparoscopic cholecystectomy with more or less similar results, but this was a study which combined 13 randomized trials on the subject and found essentially that there was no difference in terms of particularly post-operative pain or hernia, although a number of other trials which have not been included in this have mentioned that the incidence of incisional hernias after single incision surgery is more common. But however, there is obviously a better cosmetic and body image outcome as you'd expect. The worrying thing is this study, which has reported a higher incidence of bile duct injury associated with this procedure. This is a compilation of 45 studies. They excluded 30-odd studies on the basis of the fact that they constituted less than 20 cases each, with the assumption that it took 20 cases to overcome the learning curve. And in this group, they have found a higher, more than double the incidence of bile duct injuries as compared to standard laparoscopic cholecystectomy. So this is perhaps going the same way as lap chole went 2 decades ago, but obviously it means that those who are going to persist with this form of surgery have a lot to do to prove that it is worth doing. As of now, it doesn't appear to be so. With regards to bile duct stones, I think this was discussed yesterday in the CME, but the direction that this is going is that peroperative endoscopic sphincterotomy with stone removal appears to be at least as good as any other form of treatment. It has significantly fewer complications than the preoperative endoscopic sphincterotomy, primarily because you can do a laparoendoscopic, you can stick a wire down the cystic duct and help the endoscopist to cannulate more easily and safely if necessary, and also the fact that the hospital stay may be shortened in these patients, at least according to this particular review. Bile duct stricture, I haven't put anything in because everything was going hunky-dory with bile duct strictures till this whole business of early repair came along, and now nobody really knows. But the general direction is that when in doubt, delay the repair, and the rest is too controversial and there's no good literature to push one way or the other. Choledochal cysts, not that this is a particularly great paper, but what I found interesting was that the emphasis, at least in the West, and I'm sure in certain places here as well, is antenatal diagnosis of this condition. And in this particular paper, they've operated on these patients laparoscopically in infancy and had excellent results with laparoscopic excision in infancy. So the direction of treatment for choroidal cysts is antenatal diagnosis, early surgery, and laparoscopic surgery whenever feasible and whenever there is a trained person to do it. Gallbladder cancer, I don't treat a lot of it, so this may be old hat to some people, but this whole business about whether or not it's necessary to do to excise the port sites. This is a French paper published this year, but there was another paper published last year from MSKCC, which also suggested the same thing, that port site metastasis does not influence survival because port site metastasis almost always comes along with peritoneal metastasis, and therefore it's not worth excising the port sites when you're reoperating for an incidental carcinoma, and all that it does is that it potentially increases the risk of incisional hernia at the sites of port site resection, as occurred in this paper. This I found interesting because it's, as far as hyalocholangiocarcinoma is concerned, people are tending not to be so aggressive about preoperative biliary drainage and be more selective. And the reason I like this paper is that although we had a very, very small group of patients, this is what we also published. It's to this effect, of course, not anywhere as effectively as these people, but this was a large series of patients from multiple teaching hospitals, and essentially the thing was to balance whether the risks of preoperative PTBD were greater than the risks of resection in the presence of jaundice. And what they found in this paper was that for right hepatectomy, you needed to do a PTBD because otherwise the mortality, the postoperative mortality from postoperative liver failure was high. Whereas when you did a left hepatectomy, the mortality was related mainly to PTBD-related complications rather than was associated with PTBD-related complications and not to do with postoperative liver failure. So the recommendation is, according to this paper, that it may be safe to avoid doing PTBD when you're planning a left hepatectomy. And just to end, this is the other controversy in hyalocholangiocarcinoma is the role of arterial resection. And this review suggests that, as we all know, arterial resection is associated with a greater mortality and morbidity. But the problem is, and what was interesting was that it does not actually result in a greater incidence of R0 resection. The microscopic margin involvement circumferentially around the artery, even though end to end you may be able to resect the artery and reconstruct it, the circumferential resection margin is often involved and it does not influence the ultimate 5-year survival. An arterial resection does not benefit that in any way because you're essentially almost always doing an R1 resection. Thank you very much.
Thank you.